Taylor, and I'd also like to thank Duncan. It's always a pleasure to come back to Boston. My father was a Southie, and his family's from Swampscott. So I appreciate that opportunity. So we're very excited to present our research. The research we're presenting was conceived to support one of our team members, Dr. Tom Gorman, who's an indoor environmental engineer at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, regarding air change rates in operating rooms. And we did an extensive literature review. I think we reviewed over 200 articles. We found numerous articles that talked about indoor air quality in a clean and empty OR. We found some that addressed indoor air quality in operating rooms that were staged in a laboratory. And we also found several articles on computational fluid dynamics or modeling of air particulates in operating rooms, but very little regarding a dynamic operating room. So this research is looking at air change rates in an operating room that was only turnaround clean, so it had a bioload going in. We have real doctors, real nurses, scrub techs, technicians using sterile techniques and methods that are similar to a procedure, but instead we are generating particle data and gathering particle data. And we just want to say that there were no patients or animals involved in this experiment. So we call it EQI. I'd like to disclose that my partner, Dr. Wagner, and I use EQI methods to analyze sterile environments in hospitals. She is a PhD in microbiology. She's also our spell checker and grammar checker, so if something's wrong, it's me, not her. So here's our research team. Dr. Markle is a pediatric surgeon. Dr. Wagner is an entomologist. John Skojic is one of our industrial hygienists, and Dr. Gormley, again, is an indoor environmental engineer. So the premise of this study was to look at 3 air change rates. And we did this to support Dr. Tom Gormley's work on the steering committee for FGI, or Facility Guidelines Institute. And if you're aware of the FGI guidelines, or now ASHRAE 170, you know that the air change rate for ORs, Class B and C that is, went from 15 air changes back in 2010 to 20. And there were even higher air change rates proposed and are listed in certain guidelines and practices. So our hypothesis was very simple. We said that each air change rate would perform better than the previous. So 20 would be better than 15, and 25 would be better than 20. In case you're wondering, we did not do a statistical comparison to present between 25 and 15, but we can elaborate on that if you want to follow up with us. So we know that the air change rates that are mandated in codes and guidelines vary from state to state. It's kind of interesting, the timeline went from 1967, it was only 12 air changes, then it went to 25, then it went back to 15, so it's been bouncing around quite a bit. And there are legacy ORs out there that are still using some of these older or higher air change rates. And of course, there are credible sources that are even recommending higher air change rates depending on the type of procedure. As you can see, for orthopedic or open heart, even up to 40 air changes. What was very intriguing to us was the European standards that not only evaluate a static OR, but an OR that is in activity, or one that is dynamic, and measuring not only the particulate count, but also the microbial count. So we actually planned this in our research. As part of the research, we used the USP 797 guidelines, which are guidelines for pharmaceutical, and Howie kind of pointed that out. The pharmaceutical industry takes clean air environments very seriously. Of course, we all know that ORs are not clean rooms, especially if you've gone in one after a procedure has been performed. But we did measure temperature, relative humidity, pressure, air velocity, particles, microbial contamination, air change rates. We trended everything from the BMS, and I'll explain the instrumentation we used in the room. We are basically looking at the parameters we studied as an epiphenomenon. meaning that it is not directly related to SSIs. We're not saying that's not true, we're just saying that's not our claim, but they are contributing factors. And this list of 22 factors that lead to SSIs, prepared by Dr. Farhad Mohammadi with NIH, who was one of our research advisors. The items in red are the items that we addressed through our research. So it's not comprehensive, but it did have several factors that were listed. I think Dr. Rahul had a better slide on the cost of AHAIs. This was a JAMA study, but I'm going to give him the best slide award on that if you want. We designed a mock procedure, and again, we did not use a patient, so we didn't have to go through IRB. We used sterile techniques. These procedures were step by step every 3 to 4 minutes. It was on the monitors in the room, so everyone in the room knew what their next steps were and what their current steps were. Again, following typical surgical practices, but instead generating and measuring particle data, both particulate and microbial. So I'll kind of talk over our video here. So here's our team. I'm the one holding the camera, that's why I'm not in there. This actually happened before the Cubs won the World Series, so we think our team is pretty good luck. But we have 4 people in sterile gowns at the surgical table. We have 1 person is at the back table, and we have instruments that are set up. There are 7 people total in the room, 4 at the table, 1 at the back table, and 2 circulating. The circulators did go in and out of the room, both to the sterile core and the perimeter corridor. We had 6 surface air samplers that are measuring air quality. We had 2 data points, but they were in triplicate. One is at the sterile field, which we can't quite see, is in the center here. And then one is at the back table. We had 5 locations for settling plates or high volume pump spore traps. We had 4 velocity and temperature anemometers. We had 1 located below the ceiling, 6 inches. We had 1 6 inches above the surgical table. That's kind of this pole here where we could have a vertical alignment. That's just an infection control zip pole if you're curious. We had 1 temperature velocity measurement at the back table. All 3 of those were vertically measuring velocity vector, and then we had 1 at the return grill, which was measuring horizontal velocity vector. And there's John, one of our circulators. We had 3 continuous particle counters. 1 is circulating on a gridded map as you would use in a ISO classification. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We had 1 at the back table and had 1 at the return grill. Again, continuously particle counting. We had 2 video cameras and we had 1 stake. So instead of a patient surgical site, we had a piece of meat. On top of a sterile gown we used for a lapro procedure, and it was sitting on top of a bear hugger that was actively generating heat. So just kind of making sure that we included all the components.
Did you drape the steak?
No, the steak was exposed. Everything was draped around it. So here's an overview of the 3 sites. The first site was an academic medical center. General surgery practices, predominantly gut procedures were performed in that room. ORB was also an academic medical center. It was a robotic room with a Da Vinci knife. The third was a general surgery room as well at a community hospital. They all had different airflow distribution. ORA was more concentrated over the surgical table, but left nothing over the back table. ORB was a little more distributed, and ORC, they seemed to just kind of fill up the room with empty tiles with diffusers, so no real intent to deliver air specifically in that case. ORA and ORB were both HEPA filtered at the supply grills, or MER 17. ORC was only MER 14, which is about 90%, and that was filtered at the central air handling system. That will make a difference in some of the data that you see. We analyzed different pressures, temperatures, control methods for pressure, and there was a number of things that we studied to make sure that we would maintain proper pressure relationships as we varied the interchange rates. Each one of these ORs was coincidentally set up for 25 interchanges as part of normal operation. So between 25 and 20, we had the proper velocity between 25 and 35 feet per minute. When we went to 15 interchanges, we dropped below that for each diffuser. We might improve it in the future by blanking off diffusers if we go that low again.
Okay. Is it okay to ask a question or should we?
Sure.
Oh, I just saw, you had a maximum of 60% throughout the community, no minimum. So do you know where those ORs are hanging out?
Yeah, this work was done predominantly in the summer, and I think each OR, which we trended from the DMS, but it's about 48% to about 58% relative humidity. All the rooms had similar controls with reheat boxes, supply. The pressure control was a little different by room. One was through the VAV box offset, another was direct pressure, and the third was just manual balance. That was a very long day. And then each had central air handling systems that were filtered at least 90% with fresh air. So we talked about using USP 797. So these are the tables for the ISO classifications that you're going to see. There's both a classification for CFUs, total CFUs that is, and then there was classification for total. So here's an example of just an overview diagrammatically of the same thing that I showed you in the video, where we put the surface air samplers, some of the patterns that the scrub techs or the nurses or back table circulators used. We sampled four particle sizes, 0.3, 0.5, 1, and 5 microns. We did 3 cycles of 9 points, each is about 2 minutes each, for a total of 60 minutes. So we designed a 1-hour procedure, and then we had a corresponding surface air samplers that sampled a particular volume of air that took about 7 minutes, and then we changed plates. And again, we did that so that we wrapped up at the same time. So we weren't sampling particles and CFUs at the same rate, but we were sampling the total time together. Here's an example of just where we put our velocity, temperatures, sterile field, back table, return grills. We use video cameras. We also released PAO, which is polyaerolefin, at the end of the procedure, and this was to support CFD modeling, which was a recommendation of Dr. Farhad Amirzadi, who's done quite a bit of work in OR sterility, and he recommended that we do that, so we did. So this is just a quick slide to show you that we did our CFD modeling. We looked at velocities, we looked at temperatures. One of the things that was very interesting to me, that one of the models we produced only had a variance of 7 or 2% for 15 air changes and 1.2 to 9.6 for 25. I mean, that would be almost unreal in the CFD modeling world, but at 20 air changes, it kind of fell apart. So we know there's some more work to do. But basically, they built a model based on the information they gathered. We shared with them the data we collected, and then they compared the two. So this whole thing kind of began with a cost-benefit analysis to say that, you know, we've gone from 15 to 20. You know, now we're thinking, is more better? Is 25 better than 20? So we see a lot of hospitals operating at that 25 air change rate, partly because code says that we are an absolute minimum. So you got to have 20 air changes. Everybody says, well, gosh, I don't want to be on the red line, you know, so we got to have a little bit more. And ASHRAE 170 is kind of rethinking that, which is a good thing. But just to give you an example, we looked at an OR. If it had 20 air changes, 2,000 CFM, we looked at cooling, heating, economizer, this dehumidification or subcooling, so we don't want the relative humidity to exceed 60% in certain environments in the U.S. Down from 25, so they just reduced from 25 back to 20, kind of where the recommendations are, and Again, we couldn't say that anything was better at 25 versus 20. Depending on where you were in the country and what you paid for utility rates, anywhere from city utilities down to self-generated utilities, the average or the savings would be from $10,000 to $5,000 per OR. So however many ORs you have, multiply that times 10, 7, or 5, and that would be your annual savings. Again, a cost benefit for no particular benefit that we found for both particulate and microbial. And I will share that in our additional tests since the first 3, now up to 22, we are still not finding any difference in the 25 air changes versus 20, and we're still finding that deficiencies at the back table. So even though there were differences, we feel that that back table really needs to have a closer look by the industry. We welcome anyone who would want to endeavor with us to do that, or even individually on their own. We think that the USP 797 ISO classification could be helpful, but it might need to be a little bit more informative than just the classifications. And again, our data points did not present that we were statistically and consistently significantly less between 25, 20, and 15. So we do believe that air management is key. We also know that it's not only how you deliver the air, it's how the air gets out of the room. We've been able to employ some of our techniques to achieve a static ISO class 5, but it is with 4 returns, not 2, which is recommended by ASHRAE 170s with them. So you have to get it in and you have to get it out. Otherwise, it bounces off things in weird trains. And again, we're still looking at this air distribution at the back table. We've used this process to test surgical headgear. We've used it to test prepping, whether we should be sleeved or unsleeved. And there's different studies on that, right? You're cleaner if you have a sleeve, unless you don't know if something's touched your gown, so it's, the bare below the elbow study. So there's points and counterpoints to everything. We're looking at sterile draping of the sterile table, of the back table, until instruments are ready to be used. That's kind of our next endeavor. What's interesting about the HCS study with headgear is it's kind of a preference, whether it's bouffants or skull caps. And what we found is it has nothing to do with the style, it has to do with the materials, property, the porosity, and the permeability of what you're wearing on your head versus the actual way it's applied or what it looks like. So thank you.